So Joe, thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to chat with you today because AI is obviously a major topic for enterprise leaders right now, but there's a big difference between talking about AI and actually making it work inside of an organization. And so for this conversation, I like to focus on what you're hearing from clients, where companies may be getting stuck, and what leaders should be thinking about as they move from planning to execution. So from your perspective, how are client conversations changing around AI, emerging technology, and professional services?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Brittany. Yeah, it's a great question. I think what's really changed in the last year is the tone of the conversation. A year ago, clients were asking, where should we pilot AI? How should we experiment? But today, the question is, where's the ROI and why aren't we further along? So it's really kind of a shift from curiosity to accountability. Clients are hearing about expectations around cost savings, efficiency, productivity, and now there's this pressure to operationalize AI, not just, test it. And from a professional services standpoint, that's a direct impact on what we do. Clients aren't just asking for AI talent or technical resources anymore. They need partners who can bring a point of view, like practical delivery methodology, and the operating discipline to embed AI in business processes. So the real value is helping clients move from isolated pilots to repeatable, governed, measurable use cases that change how work gets done. Really AI has become more of a technology. It's more than a technology initiative now. It's really become a core business capability.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what does AI readiness really mean at the enterprise level?
I think when we talk about AI readiness, we're not talking about access to the tools. Most companies already have that. They have a selection of, different, providers that they're already assessing. They know their capabilities. I think readiness is the ability to deploy and scale AI in a way that actually delivers business value. And it really comes down to a few foundational things. Data governance, or data, I'd say, governance, workflows, talent, and the alignment to business outcomes. Each of those foundations needs to be assessed, and each one needs a plan to close the gaps. Otherwise, you're building AI on top of a really shaky foundation. So an example of that, we have a client that wants to build an AI solution to help their finance team answer some standard internal questions like, how much budget do I have left? Or how much did I spend last month? That's a really strong AI use case because it supports a shared service function that already has resourcing and bandwidth constraints, right? So you can't simply jump into building an AI agent and expect it to work. If that finance team has to reconcile two separate systems with a master spreadsheet and custom formulas just to get to those answers to those questions, any AI agent will struggle to provide that accurate information. And from a governance standpoint, you have to ask, should anyone in the organization be able to query budget information, or do you need a rule-based access built in? Those are just a few of the readiness questions that you have to be answered before you move into implementation for AI.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on it a little bit as you started your last answer, but you said, a lot of those AI conversations start with tools, or organizations are really focused on tools, but should they start somewhere else? Not just thinking about the tools, but as you mentioned, really thinking about what AI readiness means at the enterprise level. Should it be more than just the tools and the tech stack?
Yeah, it's absolutely more than just the tools. I think really the easiest part is actually the tool selection. I think the harder and the more important foundational question is, what's the problem are we trying to solve? Like, how are we actually trying to, meet this business outcome? So if you don't start with a business use case, the data, and how AI fits in the workflow, you end up with pilots that look great, but they never make it into production. So once you define the problem clearly, the tool conversation becomes a lot more focused. Like some examples of that. If your team is spending too much time searching across policies or contracts or knowledge articles, you may need enterprise search or retrieval-based AI. But if the issue is repetitive back office work like intake, routing, status updates, or document review, you may need workflow automation, intelligent document processing, or agentic AI. And if the goal is to help leaders analyze trends or service insights from operational data, then maybe analytics, data science, or decision support tools may be a better fit. The whole point of all of this is that the use case will narrow the field of the tools that you should select. So you're not asking what AI tool should I buy? You're asking, given this problem, what capabilities do I actually need?
And how often do clients discover that their biggest AI barrier is not the model or the tool, but the condition of their data or their processes internally?
Definitely. I think data is the number one hindrance for any customer that's on the AI journey. It's probably the most consistent pattern that I've seen. Organizations think the challenge is going to be the model or the tool itself. But once you start applying AI, they realize the real issue is the data. It's fragmented, it's inconsistent, it's not governed. The AI amplifies whatever environment you put it in. So if your processes are messy, the data is messy, AI will just make it faster and provide really messy data and really messy analysis. I think a really common misconception is that AI can take messy data and magically turn it into insights, but unstructured data and bad data are not the same thing. For example, if you want AI to analyze statements of work contracts, but your contracts are spread across email chains, PO attachments, and inconsistent templates, the technology is going to struggle. Not because AI can't read the documents, but because the underlying data hasn't been prepared in a way that supports reliable analysis. That's where the upfront readiness work really matters. That includes cleaning data, enriching it, tagging it, applying consistent metadata, and creating enough governance so AI can use it with confidence. That work may not feel as exciting as deploying an AI solution, but it's what determines the success of AI. It really just, really helps ensure it's a strong foundation. And that's really why a lot of initiatives will stall is when they move that whole from pilots into production.
Mm-hmm. And, talking through AI readiness and thinking about it, what are some of the questions that executives should be asking internally before greenlighting an AI initiative?
I think before investing in AI, there are a few critical questions leaders should be asking. First is what business problem you're solving? How we measure success? Next would be, do we have trusted, accessible data to support this? Then where does this fit into our existing workflows? Who owns the outcome and who governs the risk? And then can we scale this beyond the pilots? If you don't have answers to these questions, you're not really ready. You're still in the experimentation phase.
And if they're able to answer some of those questions, but still there's maybe some hesitancy or maybe one sign that an organization is not ready for AI yet, what would that be? What would that sign be?
Yeah, I think it really is, that first red flag is if you're really approaching with which AI tool should I buy. That usually means the organization's focusing on the solution without understanding the problem or what foundations are required to really make it successful. I'd say another sign is when every use case is treated as a standalone experiment and there's really not any plans to operationalize it or scale it. If AI is showing up in strategy decks but not in operating models, that's a clear signal the organization isn't really ready yet.
Well, Joe, thank you. This gave us a lot of great perspective on where companies are right now with AI and what leaders need to be thinking about next. So I appreciate you walking through both the opportunities and the practical realities of getting AI initiatives to work inside enterprise organizations.
Thanks for having me.